An unidentified spherical object arrived at the speech hall of a Japanese politician. It floated forward. The politician reached out his hand to touch it. Half of his body disappeared. Outside the podium's wall, a mysterious person was casting a spell. His hands were several times longer than normal. He had strange tattoos on the back of his hands. This kind of superhuman is called the reachable one. In the 7th year of the Iroku era, in April, a messenger brought the head of retainer Minamaru Kajuro Tadayori, arrived at the Maragen Village in the Shoji domain. His purpose for the visit was to convey the orders of his lord, Shoji Michiyasu, to eradicate the archenemy's army, Mogami. Michiyasu planned to level Maragen Mountain and establish a new castle as the main stronghold, in case of resistance. The same fate as Nanmaru Kajuro Tadayoshi. However, Maragen Village's leader, Maragen Masayoshi, absolutely refused to destroy their homeland for Michiyasu's castle. He first ordered the execution of the envoy, and then instructed someone to find Mogami. Inform them that, we will soon launch an attack on Shoji Michiyasu. The fate of Maragen Village's territory will be determined by Mogami, as long as they ensure not to destroy the village. Shortly after, Shoji Michiyasu led a large army to take over Maragen Village. Meanwhile, Maragen Masayoshi stood guard at the village entrance, with a few extraordinary individuals. He covered his face with a headscarf. There were rumors that Maragen Masayoshi had a hideous appearance, and dared not show his face. In this great battle, the two sides had a significant power gap. Shoji Michiyasu was determined to win. Suddenly, those villagers raised their hands, with their palms facing each other. In the next moment, a dazzling white light flashed. 3,000 soldiers fell to the ground. When Shoji Michiyasu regained consciousness, the warriors around him had all died tragically. Each person had a scar on their body. Year 2024, a university student named Nanmaru Yoji, he inherited this kind of superpower. Yoji could pierce holes through any object. However, he could only penetrate up to 7 sheets of white paper. He also established a new skill development club for this purpose. People believe that Yoji's superpower might actually grow to the extent of saving the Earth. A younger female student named Yaki, she handed Yoji a piece of announcement paper. She said, Professor Maragen from the Humanities Department is looking for you. However, but that was already 2 weeks ago. Yoji went to the Humanities Department office. He learned that Professor Maragen was conducting research in the Northeast region and hadn't been in the office recently. Yoji returned to the new skill development club. He found out that many members were planning to leave the club due to job-related stress. Furthermore, some people pointed out that his superpower was useless. Piercing, you can also do it directly. Yoji felt a bit discouraged. He was already a senior this year. He needed to disband the club, but Yoji couldn't ignore what his grandfather had said.
選ばれた特別な人間にしかできない技なんだ。ヨジ、特別な人間になりたいか？
なりたい。
Young Yoji used to believe in it strongly, but now, he felt like a failure. Just at that moment, Takayoshi Dagatani from the Humanities Department said, Lecturer Atsumi Egami wants to see you. Miss Egami is considered a partner of Professor Maragen. After hearing about Yoji's superpower, she speculated, the other party may be like Professor Murakami. Both are descendants of Masayoshi Maragen. That's also the reason why the professor wants to meet Yoji. He might have discovered something. Egami to confirm this, she asked Yoji to go back and investigate, to see if any relatives are related to Marukawa town. Yoji initially didn't believe Egami's words, but when he saw a photo of Professor Maragen, he felt an indescribable sense of closeness. Egami revealed a hidden secret. Professor Maragen went missing during his investigation. The root of the Nanmaru Yoji family is the biggest clue in following the professor's footsteps. Yoji's family moved to Kanto. It has a history of nearly 120 years. His family couldn't think of it for the time being. Anything related to Marukawa town. Yoji wanted to know why the professor went to that small mountain village. Egami opened a book, titled Chronicles of the Warring States in Dua. She explained, Marukawa town was called Maragen Village. During the Warring States period, it was a territory ruled by a lord named Shimadara. The neighboring Mogami clan's army invaded Shimadara's territory. The head of the Shimadara clan at that time, Shimadara Michiyasu, faced the enemy in Maragen Village. His vassal, Maragen Masayoshi, betrayed him, resulting in his gruesome death. Of course, this is only recorded in historical accounts. Professor Maragen believes this content is wrong. There were no signs of Mogami's military involvement. Their army suffered no losses. However, Shimadara's side suffered heavy casualties. During the same period, someone from Maragen Village, Nanmaru Kajuro Tadayoshi, without any reason, was beheaded by Michiyasu. Therefore, the professor speculates, Maragen Masayoshi must have sought revenge for his fellow villagers, single-handedly defeating Michiyasu's army. Therefore, 10 days after the war, Maragen Village held a festival. This theory was also challenged by others. Maragen Village had a population of only about 200 people. How could they have successfully attacked Michiyasu's army of 3,000 elite soldiers? Yoji had an idea. Could it be that their ancestors also had the ability to create holes out of thin air, and were even more powerful than he is now? The fact proves this speculation is possible, because Professor Maragen possesses the same ability. The holes he creates are much larger than Yoji's. According to the professor's wife, light often emanates from her husband's office. Whenever this happens, something will break through a large hole. Meanwhile, in an office near Maragen Mountain, an employee suddenly noticed a flash of light in the distance. He walked over to investigate. He found that the glass window had been pierced with a hole. The employee was about to reach out and confirm. His hand disconnected out of thin air. His head also had a hole in it. He fell to the ground and couldn't get up. The next day, Egami and others saw the news. To clarify the truth, they decided to visit Maragen Mountain. According to the news, the deceased Mr. Warishi, employed at Kuramine Construction Company. They intended to develop Maragen Mountain into a golf course. They had multiple conflicts with local residents. Several people arrived in Marukawa town with various suspicions. The local museum houses many wartime armors. Almost every piece has bull-sized holes. The magpie flag of the Maragami family hangs next to it. The design consists of magpies, a hand, and a circle. From the museum, you can overlook the panoramic view of the village. Maragen Mountain is right in front. Yoji's ancestors lived there. Even though Nanmaru Kajuro Tadayoshi was killed, he didn't leave any offspring, but Maragami Masori gave the youngest child in the family to the Minamimaru family as an adopted son. Thus, the Nanmaru surname was inherited. Several people split up and inquired about the professor's whereabouts on the street. Since they made no progress, Dagatani led Yoji to a cafe to rest. The cafe had celebration posters displayed. The event dates were from June 18th to the 24th. It lasted for 7 days. The waitress, Sachiko, introduced, "This is the Tanabata festival. It's just celebrated in June instead." I'm not sure why. Yoji always feels like he knows Sachiko. Could she also be a member of the Maragen family? Just at that moment, a middle-aged man entered the shop to quench his thirst. He loudly chatted with the shop owner. During the conversation, he mentioned words like teacher and worthy direct blood relative. Dagatani had a hunch that this matter was related to the professor. He asked if the person they referred to as teacher was named Maragen Masami. The man immediately denied it. The shop owner explained, teacher and lord are titles given by the locals to festival roles. They don't actually refer to real teachers. Dagatani called Yoji to leave. When the villagers heard Yoji's surname was Nanmaru, they immediately got up and called out to Yoji. Yoji explained, he is the same as Professor Maragen. Both are descendants of Maragen Masayoshi. The villagers' attitudes changed dramatically. They stuffed several bags of local specialties into Yoji's hands. The group returned to the hotel to exchange information. Etsumi, who majored in history, provided everyone with some historical knowledge. As is well known, Tanabata is the day when magpies bridge the gap. It's the day when the cowherd and weaver girl can meet. However, magpies as a species, it was after Toyotomi Hideyoshi sent troops to Korea, appeared in the Kyushu area of Japan, but during the Warring States period, the Maragen family's flag in the northeastern region had a magpie design on it. The magpies depicted on the Maragen flag were associated with the Tanabata legend. They were transmitted to this village through some form of illustration, and with each year's Tanabata festival, they gradually evolved into a symbol deeply rooted in this place. Local councillor Genichiro came with a few villagers to find Yoji. They planned to hold a welcoming banquet to welcome the descendant of Maragen. Yoji couldn't refuse, and could only comply with their arrangements. The elderly villagers even called him young master. They personally poured wine for Yoji, who was seated in the main seat. After 3 rounds of drinks, some villagers approached. They asked Yoji if he had inherited that ability. Unfortunately, before the young master could show them a glimpse, Detective Kanamura from the county police's investigation division interrupted the banquet. He was still investigating the case of Warishi's death, the main person opposing the construction of the golf course. They were all at this banquet. Kanamura had the authority to question. However, Genichiro took a firm stance. He drove the police away. Yoji had been heavily intoxicated. The next day, he went up the mountain with everyone, but halfway, the villagers stopped him, because the festival was about to take place. During this period, outsiders were not allowed to enter the mountain. This young master, Yoji, is really very prestigious. Genichiro made an exception, and cleared the way for them. The 4 of them arrived at a flat area. Apart from the neatly arranged 7 stones in front of them, there was nothing particularly notable. They returned without any achievements. In the afternoon, Miss Sachiko suddenly came over. She asked Yoji if he had any supernatural abilities. Yoji found a bottle and showed it. After Sachiko finished looking, she reminded Yoji, "You seem like an ordinary person, living an ordinary life as well. You shouldn't have come to this place." She advised Yoji not to listen to the villagers, and urged him to leave quickly. Etsumi also sensed the strangeness of the village. After the villagers saw the professor's photo, they clearly showed some panic. However, they all denied having seen him. Etsumi sensed the danger. She planned to watch the festival the next day, and then take everyone back to Tokyo. Meanwhile, the hotel manager secretly made a phone call, reporting Yoji's ability to use supernatural powers. On the other side, Sachiko's brother Takashi, who had been away from home for days, suddenly appeared. From the conversation between the siblings, it can be seen, Takashi doesn't allow Sachiko to leave the village. He even caused trouble at the place she applied for a job, and it's highly likely that Takashi also has supernatural abilities. At this moment, Yoji is waiting for Sachiko at a cafe. He can't understand the meaning behind her words from yesterday, so come and ask clearly, because there are too many people in the coffee shop. So Sachiko approached Yoji and said, "Ask him to go to the Black Flag Shrine outside the shopping district, when the celebration is held tonight." After nightfall, the 2 of them meet at the agreed-upon location. Sachiko tells Yoji that in their ancient family, individuals with unique talents are born and classified into 2 types. One type is called those within reach, and the other type is called those who open windows. Sachiko only knows of 5 individuals within reach, including Yoji. However, only those who possess both abilities can become the shrine priests of Maragen. Yoji is very curious about what those who open windows means. Sachiko explains that she is one of them, but finds it difficult to explain her own ability. Sachiko only experiences recurring nightmares. She summons Yoji that if he becomes a shrine priest, he can never leave Maragen for his entire life. At the same time, Etsumi and the others see a firelight on the top of Maragen. She asks Tagatani to accompany her up the mountain to investigate, and instructs the female student Sakuraji to return to the inn and meet Yoji. After the 2 of them reach the mountaintop, he witnesses a mysterious ceremony. A group of white-robed individuals holding long torches form a large circle and strike the ground. The person in the middle is wearing a headscarf, and his appearance cannot be seen clearly. The person opens their hands, producing a crisp clicking sound, accompanied by flashes of light. They slowly lead everyone down the mountain, and Itsumi and Tagatani take the opportunity to investigate. They discover that a stone is missing from the mountain, and during the 7 days of the festival, 1 stone disappears each day. On the other side, a few drunken men bump into Takashi, and drag him outside the street to beat him up. In the commotion, Takashi's headscarf falls off, revealing his peculiar forehead embedded with gemstones. He unleashes his superpower. As expected, Takashi is indeed a person within reach. At that moment, the group of white-robed individuals suddenly returns to the mountaintop and rushes towards Etsumi and the others. One of them removes their mask, revealing that he is Mr. Genichiro. Genichiro explains that this is a ceremony to worship the gods, and outsiders are not allowed to intrude. Then they are escorted down the mountain. Early the next morning, Itsumi and the students pack their belongings, preparing to return to Tokyo immediately. Before leaving, Yoji obtains Sachiko's contact information and meets everyone at the train station. However, Itsumi hasn't bought her own ticket, as she intends to stay behind and continue searching for the professor. Meanwhile, Takashi rushes into the inn only to find that Yoji has already left. He opens the guest register and notes down Yoji's school. Takashi quickly goes to the school in Tokyo to find someone and asks them to demonstrate their abilities. As Yoji can sense Takashi's kinship, he demonstrates his abilities without any defenses. Takashi looks at the small hole with a disgusted expression on his face. He tells Yoji that when using superpowers, there's no need for yelling or focusing attention on marks made on paper. The correct method should be performed in the air. After finishing his explanation, Takashi demonstrates by gathering a black energy ball in his palm, which is referred to as the window to the outside. Only those who can create this ball are worthy of being called people within reach. The window to the outside can destroy any solid or liquid and take away an equivalent volume. Takashi asks Yoji to try as he instructed, and it proves that bloodline doesn't lie. Yoji indeed possesses remarkable talent. The ball in Yoji's hand grows larger and larger, leaving Takashi astonished. Takashi rushes out and returns with a bucket, knocking away the energy ball to prevent Yoji from destroying the classroom. And the junior student, Yuki, witnessed everything. In the evening, Yoji sends a message to Sachiko, informing her that he encountered her brother at school. Sachiko warns him not to get close to Takashi. On the other side, two more outsiders from Tokyo arrive at the remote village of Maragami. Suddenly, Itsumi receives a call from the professor, who refuses to disclose what he has encountered, but mentions that he may not be able to return to Tokyo because a window he never knew about has opened. The school and the professor's wife will handle the situation, and Itsumi finally asks the question that has been bothering her for a long time.
人を殺めたりしてませんよね。
それは決してない。絶対に。
The professor tells Itsumi to return to Tokyo and not come again, ending the call abruptly. In a certain conference Senator Toshiro Tambay is delivering a speech. A mysterious person wearing a white cloth mask and a trench coat appears. He came to the wall opposite the podium, extending their slender hand, which bears a tattoo on the back. At that moment, a massive sphere materializes in the conference room and hovers beside the senator. In the next second, half of his body is blown away. The people in the hall are instantly thrown into chaos, and no one knows what just happened. Shortly after, Itsumi returns to Tokyo. Yoji shows them the results of his practice by slicing open a soda can from a distance. However, Itsumi's expression becomes grim, and she asks Yoji who taught him this ability. She suspects that this person is highly likely to be the culprit who killed Mr. Koraishi. That night, Takashi calls Yoji, and after hesitating, Yoji decides to answer the call.
君の力を見込んでさ、手伝ってほしいことがあるんだ。
Meanwhile, Sachiko goes to visit her great-uncle. She reports that there have been outsiders entering the village recently, and it seems like they are searching for the people within reach. Great-uncle lifts the blanket and sits up, revealing a massive gemstone embedded in his flesh on his forehead. Yoji decides to meet Takashi in person. Takashi hands Yoji a poster for the New Skills Development Research Society, asking him to be a lecturer and demonstrate his newly learned techniques. At the recruitment ceremony, Yoji thinks to himself that since he is not using his superpowers to harm others, he might as well help Takashi. The junior students from school sit in the audience. Just a few days ago, this senior named Nanmaru could only punch through 6 sheets of paper, but now he can create a spatial sphere out of thin air, which can cause fatal injuries to people. The people in the audience stand up and applaud, and Yoji receives recognition for the first time, feeling an indescribable sense of fulfillment. Thanks to his live performance, the Research Society receives over 3 million yen in registration fees on the first day of recruitment. They pay Yoji a meager salary, and they plan to hold more performances to raise funds.
でも、南丸氏は扱いやすい。頭が悪いのか、単純なのか。
A junior student named Yuki secretly records their conversation. but Yoji is unaware that he is being manipulated, and happily accepts the payment of 300,000 yen. If he could earn this much money every day, he wouldn't have to worry about finding a job. However, Yoji soon discovers a small red bump on his forehead, combining the gemstones on Takashi's and Sachiko's her great-uncle's foreheads. It is speculated that the more they use their superpowers, the larger the stone on their foreheads may become. Meanwhile, a well-dressed man named Masamoto visits an old man with a white beard, exactly who had assigned them the task of killing Congressman Tamabe. The old man is very satisfied with the outcome, but he is concerned about the incident in Marugawa town.
なんだってこの時期にそんなバカな真似を。彼に問題はございません。手が届くものとして。
In the evening, the old man with a white beard makes a phone call to someone. The whole conversation has been a riddle. Based on the limited information, it can be deduced that the old man is investigating Marugawa town. He also found out that a new person within reach appeared in Tokyo, in Etsumi's office. She can't understand what Professor Maragami has discovered. That made him abandon his life in Tokyo and choose to stay in Marugawa town. Etsumi unexpectedly witnesses an illusion.
私自身のルーツだからという簡単なものではない。
Professor Maragami states that after the attack and death of Toshiyasa Shimadara, the festival held in Maragen Village. 10 days later is the Tanabata festival. Just like in previous years, the festival started on April 29th. After flipping through her notes, Etsumi seems to have figured something out. She called Tagaya and Sakuragi over. The three of them list out the dates of the Tanabata festival from each year for analysis. They discover that most of the festivals are held in May or around that time, moving further away from the actual date of Tanabata. Sakuragi further points out that the villagers usually wait until the rice planting is completed before celebrating the festival, as a prayer for a bountiful harvest. Tagatani is puzzled, because some years had the festival held at the end of April. However, Maragami Village is located in the northeastern region, making it unlikely for rice planting to be completed in April, as it would be too early. Etsumi converts the Japanese calendar to the Gregorian calendar, converting the lunar calendar to the solar calendar. She discovers that by making this conversion, the dates align. The festival is held every year between June 17th and 19th. Recently, the festival was also held on June 18th. However, the Gregorian calendar was introduced in 1582, and was initially adopted only by Catholic countries in Europe. Why did Maragami Village in northeastern Japan adopt the Gregorian calendar early? Etsumi speculates that it must be related to the purpose of the festival. While investigating diligently on this side, Yoji is following Takashi's team and performing everywhere. The spaceball has simply become a juggling tool. Yuki knows that Yoji is being used, but has never Aretsu-minded him. On the other hand, the junior who used to look down on Yoji and quit the school club because of it suddenly changes his attitude and pesters Yoji to teach him superpowers. Yoji is an honest person who speaks straightforwardly. He explains that only members of the Maragami family can achieve it. Yuki takes Yoji away and finally plays him that recorded conversation. Yuki expresses that her dream is to become a journalist. However, realizing her dream requires an opportunity. So Yuki infiltrated the research institute of this new skill, collecting evidence of their deception, under the identity of a staff member. This exclusive headline will be Yuki's biggest opportunity. Yoji, who realizes he has been deceived, is deeply hurt. He returns the wages he just received to Takashi, and decides to quit.
違う気がするんです。この力の使い方。もっと直接的に役立たせるやり方っていうか。
Takashi gets angry upon hearing these words, and drives Yoji away. Meanwhile, the mysterious person who killed Congressman Tamabe returns to Marikawacho, which is Maragami Village. From his conversation with his subordinates, it is known that the mysterious person's name is Reitoshi Maragami. He came back today to visit the grave of Sachiko's mother.
黒根建設の事件。あれは、頼之さんでしょ。
そうだよ。残念ながらまだ夢に勝てなくてね。
After nightfall, the villagers of Maragami Village gather together. Reporting outsiders to his uncle became more frequent, and behind these people, there are powerful people acting as their umbrella. Their target is the abilities of those within their reach. We must quickly devise a countermeasure. Someone also suggested that Mr. Reitoshi may be recruiting these external individuals.
頼之、一体何を考えている？
At this moment, Reitoshi went to meet the white-bearded old man, under Zhang Yuan's introduction.
あんたが先生か。丸川町での詮索はもうやめてもらえないか。
何の話だ？
The old man wants to exploit the abilities of those within his reach for his own gain. He paid 100 million yen to hire Reitoshi, so he is dissatisfied with Reitoshi's attitude. He asks Reitoshi to take off his hat and speak, but Reitoshi doesn't care about the money. He can return the payment to the old man at any time. Reitoshi warns the influential person not to be too greedy. The old man angrily orders his subordinates, but Reitoshi effortlessly annihilates them. However, for now, he is willing to cooperate with the old man's plan.
よろしくな、先生。
On Yoji's side, he is browsing job recruitment information. There is a commotion up ahead, and a child has been locked inside a camper van by their parent. The child has fainted due to heatstroke. After much effort, everyone manages to find the child's parent, but the woman cannot find the car keys. Yoji squeezes into the crowd to help, and uses his spatial ball to break the car window, successfully rescuing the trapped child. He finally uses his superpower to do something useful. Yoji finds his purpose, but because onlookers recorded videos, the rescue process quickly made it to the news. Fortunately, the media did not expose Yoji's appearance. After seeing the news, Takashi and his partner, Glasses Guy, feel that this is an opportunity to increase public awareness and let people know about this ability. They start using their superpower to promote good and eliminate evil. Glasses Guy searches various social news articles online, including topics like teacher concealing bullying and hospital executives taking bribes. They intentionally leave loopholes in these places as a warning, and even a piece of the signboard of the Ministry of Finance is dug out. These situations immediately caught the attention of the media, who dubbed it the magic hole phenomenon. Yoji, previously known as the hole opener man by the media, naturally became the prime suspect. Even the old man with a white beard was greatly disturbed by it. He initially thought Reitoshi was the hole opener, but the abilities of the troublemakers outside were far inferior to Reitoshi's. The old man considered it a trouble. Treasures are called treasures because they are valuable and rare. The exposure of such cheap goods outside would affect the value of those within reach. Reitoshi sneered with disdain.
あんたの方がよっぽど化け物じみてるぞ。
On the other side, upon reading the relevant reports, Maragen Village immediately suspected Takashi's involvement. In order to protect the traditions and secrets of the village, Uncle made a decision.
ご助力いただけますかな、丸上教授。
The professor stated that they needed to establish contact with Takashi, and the only one who could do it was Sachiko. Meanwhile, with the help of his club friends, Yoji came up with the best way to utilize his superpower to become a garbage-clearing expert who serves the public. Yoji can handle garbage more easily and effortlessly than recycling waste. It's impressive that you could come up with such an idea. You guys are really talented. What's even more outrageous is that Yoji actually decided to adopt the idea. They also began to make advertising flyers and plan charging prices. Suddenly, a friend noticed a pimple on his forehead that seemed much larger than a few days ago.
あれか、消す力を使うと出てくる印みたいな。わあ、それかっこいい。なんかアメコミのヒーローっぽい。
Although these silly kids revealed the truth, no one realized the seriousness of the problem. At this moment, Sachiko came to the school where Yoji was studying, in order to find out the whereabouts of her brother. She also met Dagatani and Itsumi on the way, and Sachiko apologized to them on behalf of the villagers. In fact, Professor Maragami has been staying in Naragawacho, and Sachiko handed a letter from the professor to Itsumi. Itsumi didn't explain the reason for staying in the village, but simply hoped that Itsumi could understand and not worry about him anymore. Itsumi pleaded with Sachiko to answer one question.
窓が開くってどういうこと？
But Sachiko struggled to provide a detailed answer. She could only tell Itsumi that it was a terrible dream, a nightmare that most residents of Maragen Village would have. When Yoji heard that Sachiko had come to Tokyo, he hurriedly rushed over. Sachiko noticed a red dot on his forehead, and asked Yoji to lead the way to find Takashi. That same evening, the police found Glasses Guy, and wanted to take him to the station for questioning. Glasses Guy, of course, struggled desperately. In the midst of the three-person struggle, a flash of light appeared. The two policemen disappeared without a trace. Glasses Guy turned his stiff body, and saw a huge black sphere floating in front of him. Then, another flash of light. The man with glasses also disappeared. The next day, Takashi couldn't contact his partner, so he had to go to the recruitment meeting alone. Sachiko and the villagers were rushing over, and they barged into the meeting room. They tried to persuade Takashi not to misuse his abilities, but the apprentices present had already been brainwashed by Takashi. They didn't allow anyone to shut down the research society, and even shouted that Yoji was a traitor. Sachiko, as Takashi's younger sister, stepped forward to explain that her brother was a habitual liar and a fraud. Only those with Maragen Village lineage can possess supernatural abilities, which cannot be acquired by outsiders through learning. However, due to Takashi's Esetsumoners, these students had been heavily brainwashed. Even if you reveal the truth, reasoning with them is futile. Takashi asked Sachiko to hide in the small village for the rest of her life.
人殺しのくせに。
なんだと？
Takashi was very displeased. He reached out his hand to create a spatial sphere. The light flashed again. A huge hole was opened in the glass window. Maragami Reitoshi was standing downstairs. His power surpassed that of Takashi. However, Takashi saw Reitoshi with great excitement. He went downstairs to greet him. The villagers followed closely behind. Reitoshi asked Takashi to shut down this Esetsumoner. The students protested. Unexpectedly, Reitoshi rubbed a ball with one hand. He opened a hole in the building. Reitoshi extended his palm. He declared, "This is an innate ability. No matter how long ordinary people practice, they can't learn it." That junior disciple refused to believe. He said Yoji is also an ordinary person. Why does he have the same ability? Sachiko tried to stop the junior disciple from talking too much, but was a step too late. Reitoshi couldn't see through Yoji's existence. In this situation, the best solution is to make Yoji disappear from the world. Sachiko hurriedly stood in front of Yoji, taking care of her face. Reitoshi stopped and left the scene with Takashi. The villagers explained to Yoji, if Reitoshi were born in the right era, he would likely become the leader of Maragami Village. The reason he wanted to get rid of Yoji was simply to control those with superpowers. If they couldn't be controlled, they would be eliminated. The rules are very simple and brutal. Reitoshi took his superpowers out of the village, also supports a certain force behind the scenes. This has seriously violated the rules passed down through generations. However, his power is truly formidable. Even Takashi had to obey. The villagers had even less ability to stop Reitoshi. Yoji expressed his confusion. Why hide this kind of ability? Since they have received such a gift, shouldn't they make good use of it? Sachiko scolded him for not understanding anything. The atmosphere became somewhat awkward. Fortunately, Yoji did not blame Sachiko for her rude attitude. He even took her to his favorite noodle shop. The two of them even went to the rooftop to enjoy the view of Tokyo Tower. This place is indeed different from Maragawacho. Right at that moment, Yoji received a garbage disposal request.
幸子ちゃんは超能力に否定的だけど、俺はいいものだと思ってるんだよね。
Yoji invited Sachiko to stay in Tokyo. However, Sachiko had worries. The two of them returned to the hotel. Yoji wanted to know why Sachiko was afraid of superpowers. Sachiko suddenly turned her back. She began to take off her clothes. The girl's back was covered in marks. The scars on Sachiko's back totaled 9. All of them were inflicted by her brother Takashi. Sachiko's mother, Nariko, had mutual feelings with Reitoshi, but due to the Maragami family rules, they couldn't be together. Later, Nariko followed the family rules and married Kazuhiko, who was Sachiko's father. That man treated Takashi very strictly. Nariko couldn't bear to watch, so she decided to seek help from Mr. Reitoshi to help Takashi quickly gain accessible abilities. The methods Takashi taught Yoji before were actually learned from Reitoshi. In those days, Yoji went to study at the Maragami main house. Reitoshi trained him as a clan son. However, Kazuhiko was very angry when he found out about this, and he continued to abuse his eldest son. Takashi then vented his resentment on his younger sister. That's how the scars on Sachiko's back came about. One day, Takashi and his father argued again because of Reitoshi, and Takashi unexpectedly killed Kazuhiko. Nariko couldn't bear it, so she made a spatial sphere, and she drove her son out of the house. Let Takashi never come back to Tamaru's house again. Shortly after that, Nariko decided to go into the mountains, and from then on, she disappeared. Reitoshi also chose to leave Marugawa town. Before he left, he said, "I must break free from the nightmare's imprisonment and regain my freedom." However, Reitoshi is still bound by the nightmare to this day. Sachiko also told Yoji that the construction company employee who was murdered was actually killed by Reitoshi. We can never escape from this village. Yoji was deeply moved by Sachiko's words. The next day, he told the members of the new skill development Esetsumoner that it would be best to stop the garbage disposal work. As he didn't want to casually use his psychic abilities, he went to the office to see Teacher Itsumi, where Teacher Itsumi was leading Tagatani and Sakuraji in researching Professor Maragami's letter. Although the letter seemed ordinary, Itsumi knew Professor Maragami well. He would never keep research findings hidden forever, even though, as a local of Marugawa town, The professor couldn't reveal the secrets, but he definitely wants to share his research findings with everyone. So Itsumi repeatedly checked the incoming letters, and she found 2 strange paragraphs in them. Professor Maragami wrote in the letter, "After coming here, my daily life is very regular. My health has improved significantly, even without specifically looking at the clock. I can also convert the calendar of each year into the solar year with perfect accuracy." This passage uses very unnatural language. Itsumi and the other 2 investigated the Tanabata festival, its previous celebration dates, before the introduction of the Gregorian calendar to Japan. The date of the festival is determined according to the Gregorian calendar, and all fell on either June 18th or 19th, except for one instance on June 17th. But since they all understood the Gregorian calendar, why didn't they just standardize the dates? Itsumi believed that this indicated the festival was not synchronized with the Gregorian calendar, but rather with the solar calendar, which has 365 days when considering leap years, with a leap year occurring every 4 years, and 97 times in 400 years. So precisely, a year actually has 2,425 days, while a solar year is 24,219 days. The date gap caused by the adjustment error caused the festival start date to be divided into 3 dates, and holding the festival over the 7 days, around the summer solstice. The astronomical definition of the summer solstice is not a specific date like June 21st or 22, but rather a moment. Hence, the Maragami Village festival date is set on the day of the summer solstice's arrival, plus the 3 days before and after to make a full week. In the second part of the letter, it mentions the annual festival schedule and flags. I noticed that their order is reversed, although I have mentioned this to the residents. However, the other party expressed that it's strange to make corrections at this point, so they will continue in the same manner after next year. Itsumi found this statement strange, but she hadn't figured out the message behind it yet. After the meeting, Yoji went to apply for a cleaning job at a company, where he chatted with a person named Oshida for a while. He discovered that the other person was not an interviewer. Rather, it is the freeters who work part-time here. The term freeter refers to a type of flexible work style. As Yoji had made up his mind to leave the research society to prepare for graduation, so everyone threw him a farewell party. Yoji inadvertently produced a spatial ball. He, and not wanting to attract attention, he placed the ball into a beer mug, where only a portion of the liquid disappeared. At the same time, Yoji noticed that Yuki was absent, as she was currently having dinner with a police officer. When the congressman was killed by Reitoshi Ball, a police detective named Sato was also present. He and Aki met by chance. Yuki, in pursuit of her dream to achieve an exclusive news story, hoped that the detective could assist her in her investigation. She told Sato that whether it was the murder in Marugawa town, or the strange occurrences in the research society, they were all caused by the same force.
これってうまくしたら昇進とかできるんじゃないですか?
On the other side, Yoji returned home. He collapsed on his bed, he feeling like his whole body was sinking. Then he fell into a dream. Strangely, Yoji saw Sachiko in the dream. He entered her nightmare. The next moment, a huge window opened, but Yoji woke up from the dream. Meanwhile, pedestrians, cars, flying planes, and cruise ships disappeared one after another. Yuki realized the immense power of that mysterious force. She followed Reitoshi with Sato. Sato felt that this matter should be left to the police to handle, but Yuki had already followed into the building, where she heard strange noises, and she hid behind a pillar. She didn't expect Sato to come and stop her. Yuki was about to argue a few points, but a man in a suit came over and knocked out Sato. On the other side, Takashi and Reitoshi were standing by the window, looking at the building across the street. The current chief cabinet secretary was about to enter, but Reitoshi created a huge spatial ball, causing the secretary to disappear on the spot.
なんでですか?増税に弱腰だからだそうだ。全く軽いような人の命が。
Takashi doesn't understand. Why would Laiji work for the old man with white beard, when he is so powerful? Reitoshi explained that he had someone unforgivable, but that person wouldn't show up easily. So Reitoshi had to find a way to force him out, and prove that holding the festival was meaningless. 2 bodyguards carried Yuki and Sato in to report, but Reitoshi couldn't be bothered with such trivial matters. He told Takashi to leave. At the same time, Yoji and Freeter Oshita went to the apartment together to help clean. This used to be an office, but it went bankrupt a long time ago, due to poor performance. Oshita finished assigning tasks, and went to clean elsewhere. leaving Yoji to handle it alone. There were some exquisite items on the desk, with a note left by the owner, asking whoever takes them to use them with care. Yoji didn't want to treat these things as trash, so he went to consult with Oshita, to see if he could leave some for the future occupants to use. Oshita said he would discuss it with the company. While the two were talking, a huge spatial ball floated down from above. The ball floated above a certain building, then a dazzling light shone, and the building was directly sliced in half. The person who created this ball is Reitoshi, and only he can do it. People on the street are fleeing in all directions. What just happened has already exceeded normal comprehension. Passers-by have no idea what's happening. Yoji goes against the flow of people towards the scene. It's as if he's back in Maragen Village hundreds of years ago, where Tadakatsu Shimazu's 3,000 troops lie on the ground. A pedestrian bumps into Yoji, bringing him back to reality. The fact that the Shinjuku Tokyo Metropolitan Government building was cut off quickly made the news. At least 200 people are missing inside the building. Sachiko doesn't understand why Mr. Reitoshi did this, while Yoji starts having recurring dreams, but each time, he can't get close to crucial parts, because Tokyo is preparing for a large-scale city lockdown. All industries have received government notices to temporarily halt operations, including the cleaning company where Yoji works. Etsumi calls Maragen Village. She wanted to ask about the reasons why their people destroyed Tokyo, but the call was abruptly ended by the other party. Etsumi decided to go to Marukawa town to find clues. Dagatani and Sakuraji were worried, and wanted to accompany her on the mission. In the evening, Yoji returned home. He found a hole at the entrance, and saw Takashi lying on his bed. Yoji questioned why they destroyed the building, and what fault the office workers had. Takashi explained that Mr. Reitoshi just wanted to end the nightmare, and dispel the darkness in his heart. Yoji couldn't understand his words, or grasp their deeper meaning. Takashi came this time, because he was going to leave for a while. He hoped Yoji would pass on a message to Sachiko.
言ってたって伝えてくれ。
Takashi also reminded Yoji that a female student named Yuki had been kidnapped. After giving the address to Yoji, he left. At this moment, not only Yoji and the others didn't understand what Reitoshi was up to,
契約は解消する。
狂った化け物が。
but Zenjan also couldn't grasp his intentions. The next day, Yoji went to rescue Yuki according to the address. He entered an abandoned factory, and saw two bodyguards around. Yoji hid in a corner, looking at the simple map drawn by Takashi, still unsure of Yuki's exact location. On the other side, Zenjen came to check on the captive situation. He found that Sato's little finger had been twisted, and he shot the abuser dead. This wasn't to avenge Sato, but because Zenjen detested disobedient subordinates. With the significant devaluation of the yen, he needed to cut costs and downsize appropriately. Zenjen dragged Sato to the opposite side of Yuki, then handed him the gun, instructing Sato to shoot Yuki, and then clean up the scene. Zenjen held his hand ready to pull the trigger, but his phone suddenly rang. From his words, it could be inferred that Zenjen had to deal with Reitoshi termination issue. He can only come back later to kill Yuki and the others. Just then, Yoji arrived. He waited for Zenjan and his men to leave before preparing to rescue the hostages. Unexpectedly, there was another bodyguard beside Sato. After some hesitation, Yoji created a spatial sphere. He surely wouldn't kill indiscriminately. He just wanted to use the explosion to distract the indoor guards. Yoji rushed in to rescue the hostages, but there was another guard at the back door. The guard pulled out a gun and approached Yoji. In a critical moment, Sato suddenly got up and grabbed the guard's arm, but he being tied to the chair, he was quickly subdued by the guard. At this critical moment, Yoji created a very small spatial sphere, instantly slicing off a piece of the guard's flesh. Sato picked up the gun from the ground. In his excitement, Yoji created another spatial sphere, which grew larger and larger. Fortunately, Yuki managed to awaken his rationality in time. Yoji quickly threw the sphere at a pillar, and proceeded to untie Yuki and Sato. He startled the young police officer, and Sato saw Yoji almost kill the guard. At this moment, another guard's voice could be heard from outside. Yuki immediately helped Sato leave, and Yoji followed with his backpack. On the way, his forehead suddenly throbbed with pain. The gems on it became the size of peas. Perhaps because Yoji almost killed someone, the gems suddenly enlarged. Yuki advised Yoji not to overthink it, as his initial intention was to save people. On Reitoshi's side, the old man with a white beard heard about his intention to unilaterally terminate the contract.
何を考えている。目的を言え。
Reitoshi expressed that he needed to continuously experiment to determine the extent to which he could maintain the size, speed, and precision of the sphere. Reitoshi no longer wanted to help the old man with those trivial matters. The old man finally realized that Reitoshi was not a pet, but an extremely dangerous beast. He needed to take measures to break its claws. The old man headed to the Prime Minister's official residence, but at the end of the street, a glaring white light appeared once again. The next day, a deep hole appeared in the city of Tokyo. This 3-kilometer-wide hole quickly made headlines, as nearby buildings and residents all disappeared without a trace. The government stated that this might be a terrorist attack. This incident resulted in the streets of Tokyo being completely deserted, with almost all shops along the roads closed. Yoji Minamimaru went to the school alone to meet up with Emi and the others, and this time, Aki was determined to join as well. If she wants to stop Yoriyuki Murakami's actions, she must first understand what he called end the nightmare. The four of them returned to Marikawacho, seeking advice from the villagers on the specific meaning of nightmare. In fact, Emi already had a rough idea that this was related to a shared feeling among most villagers, related to opening the window, but the villagers remained tight-lipped about it, claiming that Yoriyuki must have profound thoughts beyond mortal understanding. Yoji couldn't bear it anymore. The unique customs, wisdom, and suffering of this land, indeed should not be taken lightly, but with so many people disappearing in Tokyo, shouldn't Marikawacho help to solve the issue?
丸上頼之はただの人殺しです。殿様でも君主でも孫子でもない。
In the end, the village chief decided to go together to the Hagishimuro household the next day, to have a talk with the head of the household, with Professor Murakami present as well. After a sleepless night, the next morning, everyone set off towards the Hagishimuro household. On the other side, Yoriyuki Murakami and Takashi also arrived at the Hagishimuro family mansion. Hagishimuro is the family of Takashi and Sachiko. Yoriyuki, this enigmatic person, did not clearly state his purpose, claiming he himself had realized that no matter how far he went, he would ultimately be bound to this land, which is why he returned to the village to end the nightmare. He came this time to bid a final farewell. Yoriyuki was about to push the door to leave, when he sensed a dangerous presence. The next moment, an armed force emerged from the bushes, firing wildly into the room. Yoriyuki took Takashi to hide in the shadows, and the soldiers quickly infiltrated. They found the head of the Hagishimuro family, recognizing the gem on his forehead, and they were about to shoot. A maid rushed forward to shield the master, while the master conjured spatial spheres. Seizing the opportunity, Yoriyuki attacked from behind, but the master was still hit by a bullet. At that moment, the villagers near the Hagishimuro household heard the gunshots and rushed over to see what was happening. Meanwhile, Yoriyuki had planned to leave through the back door, but to his surprise, it was also ambushed. The old man with the white beard was determined to capture Yoriyuki, while he underestimated the abilities of the other side. Yoriyuki could create dozens of spatial spheres at once, with Takashi assisting beside him, making it far from easy to capture them. Takashi was excited to see the boss making a move. Unexpectedly, a soldier suddenly fired a shot, and the bullet hit Takashi in the chest. When the villagers, Yoji, and others arrived at the mansion, they saw bodies strewn across the ground. The head of the Hagishimuro family told them that Yoriyuki and Takashi had brought external threats inside, and they must be stopped. The old man had died. Meanwhile, Yoriyuki fled the mansion with Takashi, but Takashi was hit critically, and couldn't hold on halfway. Sachiko chased them into the bamboo forest, where she found her deceased brother. She lost 2 family members. Yoji embraced Sachiko, waiting for her to calm down. Meanwhile, Emi observed the crime scene, and found a bloody handprint, resembling a magpie. Shortly after, the police sealed off the Hagishimuro mansion, sending several outsiders from Tokyo back to their hotel. As for the village chief and local residents, they were taken to the police station for questioning. On the way back, the atmosphere was very heavy. A black car stopped in front of them, and Sachiko's grandmother, Toki, got out, pleading with Yoji to change their residence. She received orders to protect him. As for others, Toki wouldn't interfere.
それはどちらから？
ご当代丸上正美様です。
Unexpectedly, the professor had somehow become the head of the household. Toki took Yoji back to her own home. In the evening, Sachiko and he couldn't fall asleep, so they drank sweet wine together and talked. Whenever Sachiko had a nightmare, she would drink the sweet wine her grandmother brewed, and she talked about her dreams. Sachiko always dreamt of waking up alone in her house, surrounded by thick fog outside the door. She went out looking for traces of people, but plunged into darkness. The process of falling feels like it's been 10,000 years. Such loneliness can swallow a person, but Sachiko occasionally feels that there are others present in that space. After listening, Yoji was still at a loss, only able to convey Takashi's apologies to Sachiko. At this point, Sachiko had already forgiven her brother for his actions. The next day, the tragedy at the Hagshimaru household was labeled as a serial murder case. The police informed residents to lock their doors and windows and avoid going out. The coffee shop owner received a call. The village chief asked them to gather at the Central Civic Hall in the evening. He also mentioned that those summoned today included not just those who opened the windows, while the shop owner and locals were discussing. Aki, who was dining nearby, secretly recorded their conversation and passed it on to Emi. The situation at the Hagshimaru household was completely sealed off, with no traces found on television news or online. Aki attempted to post information on social media, but their account was immediately suspended. The people involved behind the scenes wield power and influence. Emi decided to visit the Central Civic Hall, as Murakami Village is currently at a crossroads regarding its stance towards the outside world. Whether to adopt a stance of resistance or submission, presumably, this meeting is intended to address this issue. Meanwhile, Yoji wanted to return to the hotel, but Emi mentioned that after tonight, Yoji could go out, as important figures in town were set to meet tonight to discuss future strategies. Someone rang the doorbell. Several Akita prefectural police officers, ignoring Emi's attempts to stop them, rushed inside and began searching everywhere. Sachiko pulled Yoji out through the back door, and they ran to the outskirts. Yoji thought the police were probably looking for Yoriyuki, but Sachiko felt that any Esper was in danger. Considering 2 Esper individuals had already died yesterday, it was essential to protect Yoji now. That evening, Emi and the others approached the Central Civic Hall, where nearby villagers were arguing with the police, as the authorities had already given prior notice. The villagers of Murakami Village are advised not to go out recently, yet they have organized a gathering, which the police naturally want to intervene in. The villagers are also dissatisfied with how the police have handled the Hagshimaru case, demanding that they quickly capture the culprit. If the situation escalates further, the police will surely resort to using force to suppress it. While they usually do not harm civilians, if someone rises up in resistance, it provides the police with a legitimate reason to suppress the riot. Suddenly, several black cars arrived, and armed soldiers appeared once again. The police hope for the villagers' cooperation, urging them to report promptly if they have any information about Yoriyuki Murakami. But the people of Murakami Village have been vassals for generations, and they would not betray Lord Yoriyuki. Yoriyuki directly opened fire to suppress the situation, stating that Yoriyuki's existence poses a threat to all of Japan. At that moment, Yoji suddenly interrupted their conversation, hoping that before the situation deteriorated further, the villagers would extend a helping hand to meet and talk with him, without engaging in conflict with Yoriyuki. It's essential to understand Yoriyuki's motives behind his various atrocities, in order to make the next judgment. Yoji expressed, ultimately, abilities are merely tools for executing actions, and he will no longer allow this power to manipulate him, and he hopes that the villagers will also think carefully, not to be further manipulated by intangible forces. As soon as Yoji finished speaking, Professor Murakami appeared. At this moment, already undergoing a transformation, slowly resembling Yoriyuki, Emi fainted upon seeing this, and under the professor's guidance, finally were able to have a conversation. Whether it's the people from the side of the Whitebeard or the police, they agreed that after resolving Yoriyuki Murakami, the matters concerning Marukawacho would come to an end. The professor was willing to assist them in apprehending Yoriyuki, and assured that the remaining villagers would not leave this place. Furthermore, the professor revealed that Yoriyuki's goal is Murakami Mountain. The next day, he called Emi and others to the research room. Finally, the mystery in that letter has been unraveled. As is well known, the origin of the Tanabata festival story comes from Chinese folklore, where magpies help the cowherd and the weaver girl meet. However, in Japan, it wasn't until the later years of the Edo period that the term Tanabata came into use. In records before this time, the term Tanabata had never appeared. At first, Emi inferred that Murakami Village had the Tanabata festival first, followed by the celebration and magpie flags, which was actually incorrect. It should be that the 7-day festival and the magpie flags came first. from which the Tanabata festival evolved. Additionally, magpies only appeared after the Heian period, and people of that time had never seen such birds. Thus, initially, this flag was not called the magpie flag, but later generations named it so, because of its resemblance to a magpie. They gave it this name later. This pattern is, in fact, the handprint of Esper, and in Maragen Village, the Tanabata festival does not refer to the evening of the 7th day of the 7th month, but to 7 sunsets. During the summer solstice, the sun sets at the northernmost point, and in this village, the sun always sets on the ridge of Koroyama. Upon close inspection, a large piece is missing from the northern side of Koroyama, creating a steep cliff. Due to the high terrain, the sunset on this piece of land always occurs unusually early, except during the 7-day period around the summer solstice, where it's possible to witness a second sunset from certain locations. Thus, the Tanabata here refers to 7 sunsets. The professor used a desk lamp to simulate the sunset. On the day of the summer solstice, as the light and shadows gradually crossed the ridge, the 3 great mountains suddenly formed the flag of Maragen. The summit of Maragen Mountain is the center of the flag. Koroyama and 7 peaks respectively represent human hands and hands resembling magpies. Such masterpieces are, of course, beyond the reach of humans. Professor Murakami speculates that it was done by their ancestors or ancestral gods. The professor tentatively refers to the people who created this landform as magpies. He believes that 1,000 years ago, the magpies appeared in this place. The locals naturally regarded them as deities. When they first saw these creatures, legends in Maragen Village have often mentioned, when the deities descend on the mountain, there will be a bountiful harvest. Therefore, the magpies should visit regularly, assuming the mountain where the deities descend is Maragen Mountain. Its circular summit is akin to a helipad. The torches at the festival are equivalent to navigation lights. However, the magpies stopped appearing at some point. Even so, the locals hold a festival every year. This is because the magpies have placed an invisible shackle on the villagers. They have spread their esper through the veins of the locals, along with a visible fear outside the window. The so-called outside the window refers to those nightmares, those unbearable fears and concerns. The people who occasionally reach out in dreams are actually the magpies from years past. The professor speculates that these mysterious visitors initially intended to use Maragen Village as a place for resettlement, or as some kind of experimental site. They have domesticated the local humans, turning them into servants, and have selected some women to bear offspring, infusing abilities into this bloodline. As for why the magpie flag pattern was left on the mountain, it was actually to test the loyalty of the servants, to see if the villagers could withstand external interference, to protect this land at all costs, waiting for their return. The reachable ones are the weapons bestowed upon the people of Maragen Village by the magpies. The fear of opening the window is the shackle that imprisons the villagers. The magpie's hand granted mortals the ability of spatial sphere. That is the significance of this flag pattern. The magpies have not appeared for hundreds of years. What Yoriyuki wanted to do was to destroy Maragen Mountain and break the shackles, but he harmed too many innocent people and must receive the appropriate punishment. Everyone guards Maragen Mountain day and night, awaiting Yoriyuki's arrival, to prevent him from using the spatial sphere to destroy Maragen Mountain. The professor instructed everyone to light bonfires at night. This is to inform Yoriyuki that there are still villagers on the mountain. Although Yoriyuki has taken many lives, he won't harm the people in the village indiscriminately. Only by doing so can they prevent him from eliminating the mountain. At a critical moment, the people from the side of the old man with the white beard have had a change of heart. They are worried because Yoriyuki has not shown up yet. The professor's actions are seen as a cover-up plan to help Yoriyuki escape. Moreover, the side of the old man with the white beard fears the Esper. He will certainly try to wipe them out. With things at this point, the professor can only prepare for battle. It turns out, Yoriyuki has infiltrated the armed forces. His appearance is becoming more and more like a magpie. He has surpassed the realm of humans. The leading soldier was about to raise his gun when Yoriyuki sliced off half of his head. Just as everyone breathed a sigh of relief, Yoriyuki suddenly said, he doesn't just want to destroy Maragen Mountain. Yoriyuki, in his current state, has no attachment to this world. Since their ancestors aren't coming to get them, Yoriyuki will find his own way there. He conjured a spatial sphere. The black sphere rose slowly. It merged with another massive sphere. It resembled a dark, oppressive cloud, hovering in the sky above Maragen Mountain. Yoriyuki believed that this sphere was the gateway to another world.
私も 私も連れてってください。
何言ってんだ、幸子ちゃん。
In her dreams, Sachiko has always wanted to grasp those hands. Perhaps now is the last chance. But Yoji won't let her take risks, because no one can be certain that the spatial sphere is the entrance. What if Sachiko dies? What then? Furthermore, Yoji really doesn't understand them. Why do they easily fall into despair about this world?
みんなこの世の広さを分かってない。広すぎて掃除すんのだって大変なんだよ。
Nightmares, invisible shackles, magnificent supernatural abilities, compared to the world. All these things are insignificant. How can one entrust their life to such trivial matters? Yoriyuki remembered Sachiko's mother. She willingly allowed herself to be consumed by the spatial sphere. Therefore, Yoriyuki firmly believes that there is another world inside the sphere, even if it doesn't exist. He still wants to be with his beloved. The professor sees that Yoriyuki has made up his mind. He tells everyone to leave. Yoji runs wildly while holding Sachiko's hand. Yoriyuki summons the massive spatial sphere above his head, and both Yoriyuki and the top of Murakami Mountain disappear together. At the end of the story, Emi quits her job, choosing to stay on Murakami Mountain to accompany the professor. Aki becomes a journalist, while Yoji establishes a non-profit organization, helping everyone exchange goods, even though his previous career plan was waste disposal. But the current Yoji only wants to turn trash into treasure. He has never used his superpowers again. The gem on his forehead also disappears. Yoji often goes back to Morokawacho to check on things. The people there fill the holes on the mountain with soil. Sachiko finally accepts this land. The movie ends here. Adapted from the manga of the same name. The pace of the first few episodes was good. The content and setting were also very attractive. But as it progressed, the pace slowed down. It kept being mysterious. The plot progression was too slow. The explanation of aliens leaving behind superpowers, in the end, was acceptable. Japan is good at making these remote mountain village mystery types. However, this one doesn't leave the same impression as Gannibal. If you like my video, please consider subscribing.